The following program may contain coarse language, violence, nudity, mature subject matter, or scenes which may not be suitable for all viewers. Viewer discretion is advised.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome back to the X Zone, everyone. I am Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our broadcast center and studios in, where are we, Craig? That's right, St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada. If you would like to send me an email, xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, on all social media sites, Xzone Radio TV. And we're coming to you around the world tonight, right here on the Xzone Broadcast Network, Talkstar Radio Network, Mutual Broadcast Network, and Channel 54 on Simul TV. Let me see. Is there anything that we should talk about before I get to my first guest tonight, Dr. Scott Taylor? Yes, there is. One quick note. Kathleen Marden, whose claim to fame was on the coattails of her aunt and uncle Betty and Barney Hill, has now said she's given up on scientific ufology. What does that mean? Well, I wasn't sure, so we were able to get a clarification from our good friend, the one and only Kevin Randall, who is the host of A Different Perspective here on the Xzone Broadcast Network. According to Kathleen Marden, she is now looking at the spiritual side of UFOs. What does that mean? I have no idea, but it seems that the Mutual UFO Network is also giving up on the extraterrestrial context of ufology, or as I like to call it, ufology, and going with the spiritual side. So it has nothing to do with ETs. It has everything to do now with spirits, altered dimensions, altered universes, and, in my opinion, more altered crap. That's what's happening. That's the news update. And we're trying to get a roundhouse going with Philip Mantle, Philip Mantle, as well as Kevin Randall and yours truly, to try and hammer out what is really happening in the world of ufology. And all this happened because now the United States government is saying that the naval video footage of the Tic Tac and the gimbal were actually drones. They were not extraterrestrials from outer space. And they also were saying that some of the other video footage shot by aircraft, naval aircraft, was radar glitches. Sorry, gang, no UFOs. Explained, and now you have all these different ufologists are now going and saying, well, we're giving up the scientific aspect of ufology. We're not going to investigate it anymore as extraterrestrials. We're looking at the spiritual side. It's nice to know they finally found God. Dr. Scott Taylor is my special guest for this hour. We're going to be talking about near-death experiences, and joining me from the Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia is Dr. Scott Taylor. And Scott, welcome to the X Zone, sir.
Yeah, thank you. I'm so glad that we're moving from science to spirituality. That's a fun thing. And Rob, thank you for the invitation tonight. I've been looking forward to this.
It's my great pleasure, sir. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Scott.
Sure. I am the president of the Expanded Awareness Institute. What we do is we help people to understand near-death and shared-death experiences. We hold classes in it. We have albums. We got all kinds of really interesting things that speak directly to who we are as multidimensional beings. So that's a fun thing. Before this, I was the executive director of the Monroe Institute. Did that for a couple of years. Was a trainer for them for 35 years. And I had a life as a faculty member in small business management where I mentored small business owners. And before that, I was 20 years in the retail business. So wow. It's kind of a mixed bag.
But I find out in life, when you have a mixed bag in your past, you bring a lot to the present and you just expand on the future.
I love that. I'm going with that. May I quote you?
You certainly can, sir. You certainly can. Scott, you mentioned shared death experience. What's that?
So, shared death experiences, people have heard a lot about near-death experiences.
Yeah.
And that's typically happens when there is some sort of trauma to the physical body, and the physical body dies.
Right.
And the non-physical body leaves, goes out and has an adventure in the non-physical universe. And then those stalwart people back in the physical, reanimate the physical body. And then, our soul, our non-physical body, whatever you like to call it, is sucked back in, and then we have the ability to tell what happened on the other side. Shared death experiences, on the other hand, have nothing to do with physical trauma. They happen typically when you are, say, bedside with somebody who's making their final transition.
Right.
As they leave their physical body, you get a chance to go along with them. So you're invited to go with them, and you share in their transition from the physical world to the non-physical world. And so the difference is that, near-death experiences seem to be tailored for the individual. And what they experience is meant specifically for them, because the folks upstairs know that they're going to send you back into your physical body. But shared death experiences are a witness of somebody who's making their final transition. So it really is evidence of what happens when we make our final transition. And the lovely thing that I have discovered along this path is that when people make their final transition and there's somebody there to witness it, 100% of the time, every single time, the people who are making their final transition go to a benevolent afterlife. It's not always the same with near-death experiences. Sometimes people have a less than positive experience, and that has all kinds of reasons. We can talk about that later. But the common elements are very similar in both. They experience the same kind of things, except shared death experiences, they always go to a benevolent afterlife. Isn't that a lovely thing to learn?
It is. It's like take a friend to death day.
I love that.
Yeah, you can use that one as well.
Okay, thank you. I'll do that.
Is this something that the person who is making the transition decides? How does the
how does it happen?
Sure. Hey, well, I can just see two people talking. Well, today's a good day to die. Hey, you want to come with me? But we'll send you back. How does it work?
How does it work? In a shared death experience, there typically are three things that need to happen.
Right.
First is that there needs to be a heart connection between the two people. So they're related or spouses, or they have some sort of deep feeling for the other person.
Right.
The second thing that needs to happen is the experiencer, say me, who is witnessing the death of somebody I care about. I need to be in a open and receptive state. So I can't be actively grieving or talking or, doing things. I need to be in a spot where I am open to changing my vibratory level so that I can move with the person who's making their transition. And the third, and probably the most important, is that the invitation needs to come from the person who's making their final transition to the experiencer. And it doesn't work the other way around. I mean, I can be with somebody who's dying, and I can wish that I can go with them, but nothing really happens. And that's principally because we, in the physical, have a hard time really instantly changing our vibratory level so we can make that move, because you need to be able to match the vibratory level of the non-physical universe. The reverse, though,
Mm-hmm.
is that the people who are leaving their physical bodies um, seem to have the ability to slow their vibratory level to such a degree that they can make the invitation, there's a match, and then off they go. So the invitation needs to come from the person who's making their final exit.
You mentioned that one thing that can't be done at the time in order to have this SDE is no grieving. Now, how does anybody with the right mental capabilities not grieve when somebody that they love, whether the person is in the final stages of cancer or whether the person is the suffering because of an accident or whatever the case? How do you not grieve at the time of passing?
Thank you. That I appreciate that clarification. What I was trying to get at is actively grieving. So, say you're in a room filled with people
Mhm.
holding vigil,
Right.
and the person is making their exit, and you turn to each other and you hug each other and you cry and you say, "Oh, I miss him so much," or whatever.
Right.
Um, that's different than being quiet and in kind of a meditative state as you're watching and available.
Okay. I can understand that, let's say in a hospice where there's been time to prepare for this departure and
Yep.
the departure is inevitable. But once again, when it comes to the sudden realization that your loved one is going to be going, you believe that you're never going to see them again, you're never going to hear them again, that part of your life is just going away. And I don't know how anyone can sit back and bring themselves to a meditative state where the frequency of you, the living, meets the frequency of those who are getting ready to check out from this existence and go wherever they go.
Yeah. So certainly there is grieving going on.
Hmm.
Um, and for those of us who have witnessed people making their final transition, a lot of times you're just waiting, and
Yeah.
you wait for a long time, and all there is to do is to watch the heart monitor. And when the heart monitor slows, you're just
Getting ready.
getting ready. And or um, even more than half the time, people aren't bedside. They're at home and they're asleep, or they're
Hmm.
watching television, or they're reading, or in some sort of
Right.
calmer activity. If they were at a party or actively engaged in playing cards, or the likelihood of it happening, not so much.
Doctor, stand by. You and I have to take our first break. Exonation, our guest this hour is Dr. Scott Taylor, www.neardeathmeditations.com. And the good doctor and I return on the other side of this break. Don't go away. Reminds me of when I was hanging a picture once. That's exactly what happened to the wall. Scott Taylor is our special guest this hour, neardeathmeditations.com. Quick question, Scott. What is the ratio of near-death experiences compared to shared death experiences that you and the other fine folks that you work with who are studying this phenomena come to?
That's a really good question. I don't know the exact figure, but I would tell you that it's something like 10,000 to 1.
Wow.
Or at the minimum 1,000 to 1. The first real academic study about shared death experiences just came out. It was a book written by William Peters, and he interviewed 800 people for the data that's in his study, and that was just released. near-death experience. The studies on that go back 45 years, and I know of 30,000 cases.
Wow.
So you get kind of the ratio there. Shared death experiences is a relatively new phenomenon. It was coined by Raymond Moody, the same guy who coined the term near-death experience. And so he is really good at, planting a flag and saying, I'm really excited about this thing that I have found out. And I would like some real serious researchers to go out and look for it, but not me because I'm too busy. And that's exactly what happened with near death. He published his first book, and there's a whole bunch of serious academic types who, took a long time to be able to prove that NDEs are real and that they have the scientific data to back that up. And the same is happening with shared death experiences right now. We're at the beginning of that, and I'm sure glad that it's out there, because that's what happened to me, and that's the kind of thing that makes people who've had an experience go, "Oh, I'm not the only one. There's a tribe, out there, and I can find you, talk to you, and not feel so alone."
But it seems there's always been this, it's not a battle, but opinionated research when it comes to academia versus medical research and science. The majority of doctors say near-death experience, we can explain it scientifically and medically. Academia says, well, wait a second, hold on. Let's look at it from an academic side of the coin. Do you think these two sides will ever meet?
Yeah, they have met, actually, on near-death experiences, certainly. The science is pretty much nailed down. The academics have really come through and said, yep. Now, the nice thing is the leader in this area has been the University of Virginia, and a guy by name of Dr. Bruce Grayson, who's both a psychologist and an MD. So he's got like both sides coming at it.
Right.
And he spent the last 40 years nailing down what it is that happens. And, we're a long way down that path now.
Yeah, I understand that, sir. But the majority of medical professionals that I've spoken to on this show and other shows that I do are still saying that the science has not established that near-death experiences are a trip to the other side and getting booted back to this side. How come?
Because they haven't read the research. They're not up to date. I mean, it's been 20 years.
Now, sir, I hate to disagree with you here, but when I'm talking about professors of neuroscience at McMaster University, McGill University, University of Toronto, I can't say that they're all behind the times.
I would.
Well, that's because you believe it. You've had your own experience. You've had an experience. So tell us about your experience. And maybe this will give me a hint, and our listeners and viewers a hint on why you're so steadfast and that you're going against what many members of the professional profession are saying that is just not so.
Well, you know what they say about medical research, that in order to embrace a new paradigm, it happens one retirement at a time. People are very, very vested in their belief systems. And if you've grown up believing that the consciousness resides within the physical brain, and then, research comes along that says, nope, that's not true. Boy, it takes a really stalwart academician or scientist to say, I wonder if everything that I have believed over time can really be turned around that quickly. So,
well, we know for a fact that academia lies a lot. We know this, So how can we trust academia and anything that they put out there? Academia taught us that Christopher Columbus discovered the Americas, discovered America, and we know that's false.
Yeah,
academia's taught us a lot of things that are false. And so how can we trust academia with this research?
Which one? The old stuff or the new stuff?
The new stuff.
Well, in academia, one of the lovely things is that you put it out there and you say,
Mm-hmm.
this is what happened. These are the experiments that I did.
Mm-hmm.
See if you can verify it. And, the experiments that were done over 10 years in Amsterdam by Dr. Pim van Lommel, and they were replicated
Mm-hmm.
both in the UK and at the University of Virginia. So the likelihood that they're accurate is really high.
But that's only 3 countries. What about the rest of the world?
Yeah, well, that's a nice thing about academia. You can keep going at it and keep
Mhm.
going at it and keep going at it.
What's the difference between the experiments that academia would do compared to the experiments that the scientific and medical community would do? And why the
Well,
2 different answers?
The research that I'm talking about that was done by Dr. Pim van Lommel
Mhm.
was a prospective research, which means that you do it live. And what happened was that he set up this this experiment in 10 different hospitals in Amsterdam.
Right.
And what they did is when people came into the emergency room
Mhm.
and they were complaining of chest pains, so they or maybe having a heart attack, maybe not. The very first thing that they do when you walk in or are carted in through an ambulance is they put
Mhm.
monitors on you. They put those little sticky things all over, so they have you
Mhm.
exactly monitored what was going on. And some people arrested in the emergency room, some people of those that were arrested flatlined.
Mhm.
And during the period when they were flatlined, of course, they were trying to
Sure.
resuscitate them. And then they were able to do that, brought them back. And then they were interviewed afterwards as soon as possible
Mhm.
and asked, and I find this to be a really interesting question. They said, do you remember anything that happened while you were unconscious? And the answer turned out to be true, that they were able to recount events that happened when they were flatlined. And they know exactly when they are flatlined, and they know exactly what happened during that period. And these people were able to recount conversations. They were able to
Mhm.
recount what was going on with the monitors, with
Mhm.
the various equipment. They were able to recount any surgical procedures that were done on them. And that is impossible because the brain is incapable of making memory when it is flatline. And so, ta-da!
No,
Now we have,
that's not a ta-da.
yeah, that's
How
a
can you say
huge ta-da.
ta-da?
Because during a time when they were supposedly unable to make memory, they did make memory, and they
Mhm.
made it um, uh, from points of view that were outside of the physical body. So they were able to verify
Mhm.
those conversations, and afterwards, um, they were able to say, um, the same sort of thing happened in the UK and at the University of Virginia. So they were able to go, yes,
Okay.
consciousness does not reside within the physical brain, that consciousness can move about independently of the human mind. And that changes forever this idea of the seat of consciousness being
Mm-mm.
residing within the physical brain. And that's the old paradigm that
If
is
everybody
need to
who
let go.
if everybody who flatlined could share the same experience and the same experience was reported, I could see your point. But not everyone who flatlines has a near-death experience.
Correct. They don't.
So,
About
all right,
19%
so
do.
19%. So how can we say ta-da? What about the other what? 89%?
They didn't need it.
Or
That's
it
the only
never
thing I
happened,
can come up with.
or it never happened, right?
Well, it didn't happen for them. Yeah.
Once again, like there's too many there's too many holes in this piece of cheese for somebody who listens to both sides to say unequivocally that it's a ta-da. I think that there's more that needs to be investigated. I'll agree with you there.
Always true.
Yeah. Let me see. We're going to take an early break because I want to get back and hear your story about your near-death experience. Exonation, our guest this hour is Scott Taylor. His website is neardeathmediations.com. This is the X Zone. I'm Rob McConnell. We'll be back on the other side of this break. Don't go away or have a near-death experience. And if you're going to have a near-death experience, take somebody else with you and have a shared death experience. We'll be right back. And welcome back, everyone. Whether you've had a shared near-death experience or a near-death experience during the commercial break, welcome back. Just before we get back to Scott, a couple of things. The X Zone Broadcast Network was just awarded the best New Age and Holistic Health broadcast show. Thank you very much for everyone who helps us get to these different awards. This was for the year 2022, so thank you. Looks like 2023 is going to be another stellar year because of you, the members of the X Zone Nation. Also, some of the great shows we have available for you on the X Zone Broadcast Network include A Different Perspective with Kevin Randall, Mission Evolution with Gwilda Wiyaka, and Practical Parapsychology with Dr. Brian Laith, Dr. Jim Huran, and Dr. Cindy Little. For more information on all the shows on the X Zone Broadcast Network, that's our radio side. Visit www.xzbn.net. Dr. Scott Taylor is our guest this hour. www.neardeathmeditations.com. Scott, you had a shared near-death experience. Can you share it with us, please?
Sure. Thank you, Rob, for asking. I appreciate that. This happened in 1981. Mm-hmm. I was in love with a beautiful woman. Her name was Mary Frances Randall. And she and her son had been out sailing on a lovely lake in southern Minnesota called Lake Washington. And on the way home, they were involved in a horrific car accident. Mary Fran was killed outright. And Nolan, who had just turned 7, had sustained a mortal head wound. What's lovely about being in southern Minnesota is that you are really close to one of the best medical facilities in the world, which is the Mayo Clinic. Both of them were rushed to the Mayo Clinic, and Nolan received this wonderful care while he was there. And it took him 6 days to make his transition. That winds up being important because Mary Fran was one of 9. And so in that intervening 6 days, her brothers and sisters all had a chance to come and hold vigil with Nolan as he was fighting for his life. Well, it wasn't only just the brothers and sisters. I mean, it was, their boyfriends and girlfriends and spouses and uncles and aunts. And, and that's just her side of the family, and then there's my family too. So there was quite a lot of us that were there as we were with him, and so many that we wound up divvying up the time slots, and so we could be with him, because where Nolan was staying, his hospital room was small, and it was filled with all of this equipment that was monitoring his physical status. Well, I had the shift from 3 a.m. to 5 a.m. on the morning of the 6th day. And I shared it with Mary Fran's oldest sister, Janie. And the two of us spent time with him. And one of the lovely things that we know about people who are in comas is that hearing is the last sense to go. So we had been counseled by the medical staff to talk to him. And so when it was our shift, we brought along his favorite books. We read him stories. We told him about his uncles who had gone throughout the late at night, had gone throughout Mayo and stolen the cushions off of the couches so that, because there's so many people in the waiting room, it wasn't comfortable. So they, made this big bed. It was a fun story to be able to tell him. And then it got to be about 4:45 in the morning. And Janie, who was a trained emergency room nurse, went to the end of the bed, and she's looking at his statistics, and then she looks up at the monitors and just gestures to me that Scott, it's time to say goodbye. And so we pull up chairs next to Nolan's head and we tell him that he's been such a brave boy, that he has really fought hard to stay alive and to be with us here in the physical world.
Mm-hmm.
And that we love him terribly, but if his mother should come, remembering she died 6 days before,
Yeah.
if his mother should come, that he should go with her, and that would be the right thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
And we again told him that he was brave and we loved him, and we said our goodbyes, and then, we left.
Sure.
The next shift came in. Well, it wasn't 45 minutes later when the nurse came in and woke us all up and said, it's time. And I don't know, there's like 40 or 50 of us, and we all filed into this little hospital room. And as it turns out, Rob, I was one of the very last people to be in the room. And when I got there, there was only, 4 or 5 deep around the bed.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, what's the point of that? So I wound up sitting on the windowsill next to Mary Fran's brother, Willie. And there we just waited, and, really all there is to do when you're holding vigil is to watch that heart monitor that's, doing it's a little bouncy thing. And then it slows and slows. And finally it flatlines with that ominous tone that it makes. And when that flatline, when Nolan flatlined, what I experienced was Mary Fran crossing the veil and scooping Nolan up out of his physical body. And they had this exquisite reunion between them, as you could only imagine between a mother and child. And I was surprised because I got to feel it. I was able to witness and feel what was going on between Mary Fran and Nolan. And then, more to my surprise, was that the two of them then turned to me, embraced me, and the three of us went to the light. And entering into the light was probably one of the most staggeringly wonderful things that has ever happened to me. It was like I had just entered into the love of the universe, that I was connected to Mary Fran and Nolan, but I was also connected to everything else that was out there. And the three of us had a chance to be together. We had a chance to express our love and affection for each other. We had a chance to say our goodbyes, and we had a chance just to be together for a while. And then it felt complete, and they moved further off into the light, and I returned back to my physical body. So that's part A of the story. I was going to pause here just see if you had any questions about that.
How long did the SDE last?
Well, time in the non-physical universe isn't like time in the physical.
In the physical.
Yeah, in the physical, I'd tell you it's like 10 minutes.
So were you gone from this room of 40 to 50 people?
That's part B of the story.
All right, why don't we hold it here? I've got to take my final break. Exonation, okay. Scott Taylor is our guest. NearDeathMeditations.com. We'll be both back as we wrap up this hour here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada. And beautiful coffee is the official coffee of the X Zone and the X Zone Nation. Scott Taylor's our special guest. And Scott, before we left, we were doing part A and part B. And the last question I asked you was, here you were, 40 to 50 people. Why only you? And you said, that's part B. So let's go with part B.
Yeah. So I'm up there in the non-physical with Mary Fran and Nolan, and we're having a chance to be together. But I was also in the room with all of the other grieving relatives. I was sitting on the windowsill, and I am fully conscious in the room with them. And I'm fully conscious as I'm with Mary Fran and Nolan. And I know this because inside of me, there is this love of the universe, this extraordinary light and being that is it's just like it's trying to break out of me. And my face was one of ecstasy. It was one of joy. I was just so happy to be in this state. And I was totally inappropriate for the room. And I knew that. So what I wound up doing was covering my face with my hands so that if anybody were to look at me, they wouldn't misunderstand because, I mean, Nolan had just made his transition. Mary Fran had died 6 days before. And to look at me and have this beatific look on my face just wasn't appropriate. So I did. I covered my hands over my face, and I was there in the physical room, and I was there with Mary Fran and Nolan. And when they turned and went into the light, I had a chance to come back to my physical body. The two parts of me reconnected. And then when I could regain my composure, I could take my hands down and then be fully present for those other grieving relatives in the room and do what you should do in that situation, to cry on each other's shoulders and hug and be fully present for them. So I didn't have a word for it then, Rob. I now I do because I've studied this. It's by location. I had two separate consciousnesses that happened at the same time.
So you had a biolocation experience and you also had a shared death experience at the same time.
Yep.
Question for you.
One and the same.
Is it possible that what you encountered was caused by your grief and it was a product of your mind trying to help you cope with the loss of your girlfriend 6 days ago and now loss of your of her son, that this is the way that you, Scott Taylor, were able to cope with everything that was going on?
That's a really good question. And I wondered that for about 15 years. And then I was studying near-death experiences. That was my doctoral research at the University of St. Thomas. And I was casting about looking for people to interview, and all of Mary Fran's, the women in the family, they were all in the medical profession in one way or another. So I'd send them all a note. And I really would like to interview somebody that's had a near-death experience. Well, one of the sisters who wants to remain anonymous, that's why I'm just going to call her the sister, she wrote me back and said, Scott, I had a near-death experience and I would love to tell you about it. And so we did. We met and we were doing the protocol. You tape record it and there's, certain questions you have to ask. And at the end of it, I stopped the tape recorder, was packing up my stuff, and I had this thought, which was, did you have anything? No. You and I were both there when Nolan made his transition. Something strange happened to me. Did anything strange happen to you? And she looked at me and her eyes got just as big as saucers. And she said, yes. And I said, okay, I'm going to turn the tape recorder back on and I want you to tell me. You tell me your story first, then I'll tell you mine. And this is what she told me. She said that she was standing bedside on the other side of the room from me. She says, I know this because you were sitting on the windowsill next to Willie. I could see you. I said, yep. And she said, when Nolan flatlined, what happened, what she experienced was Mary Fran coming across the veil, scooping Nolan up out of his physical body, that the two of them had this exquisite reunion that she was able to participate in. And then the two of them turned to her and the three of them left and went to the light. Rob, she used the exact same language in exactly the same order as I did. And in that moment, I went, all doubts that I had just completely vanished because we had the exact same experience. The only difference, of course, was I didn't see the sister and she didn't see me. And, because of how time works in the non-physical, did they happen at the same time? I don't know. I don't know how that works, but it was the same experience. We verified it for each other. So, yeah, I think that was a really fair question to ask. Was it my grief? I wondered that for a long time. After hearing her story, not anymore.
How come only 2 out of 50 had this experience?
I don't know. Well, there are, the 3 reasons for why people have near death or shared death experiences.
Mhm.
Excuse me. The heart connection. Were they in an open and receptive state, and was there the invitation? And certainly I was very close to Mary Fran and Nolan, and the sister was very close to Mary Fran and Nolan, and that's where the invitations went. That's who the invitations went to.
So there was you and her sister who received this this invitation. But what about the other people there? Is anybody else as close as you and her sister were to them?
Well, certainly. I mean, it's their sisters, so that everybody's close. But
so why didn't everybody receive the invitation?
I don't know. That's who she sent it to, and that's all I know.
Time has come, my friend, when you and I must say so long. I do want to thank you very much for coming on the show. And X-Zone Nation, if you'd like to get some more information on Scott Taylor, visit his website. And the website, again, Craig, is neardeathmeditations.com. I don't know. I have a problem with this one, X-Zone Nation. Shared death experience, Raymond Moody. Okay, he's known for near-death experiences. Maybe he just ran out of things to sell and he had to come up with something new. I don't know. Do I give it credibility? On a scale of 1 to 10, I'd have to give this one a -65. It doesn't resonate true with me. This last example where he shared the so-called experience with the sister, both experiences were identical, except he didn't see the sister. She didn't see him. This is 15 years later. There are approximately another 48 people there, and none of these other people received invitations. And isn't it funny that this gentleman's first job was a salesman, and then he's with the Monroe Institute, and now he's doing his own shtick? Once again, credibility, in my opinion, is not there, and I would rather believe a medical researcher, a medical scientist, than I would anybody in academia. I'll be back at the top of the hour as the X-Zone continues with yours truly, Rob McConnell, from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away.